Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/PettyRevenge, where the revenges don't destroy lives, but they're still super duper satisfying. And in today's episode, OP's entitled Karen of a mother-in-law tries to destroy her wedding day by wearing a wedding dress to OP's wedding. And let me tell you, she gets taught a lesson that she won't forget. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Hit subscribe if you haven't. And as always, you can send your crazy Karen stories to this email right here. Let's dive in. So to start off, I have dwarfism, and this often leads to weird interactions in public, especially with kids. Sometimes a kid will come up to me and ask me why I'm so short. And I do have a pre-prepared response for that, but most of the time, they'll just loudly ask their parents why I'm so short. Usually the parents will awkwardly drag their kids away, telling them not to comment on people in public, which is sad, but understandable. Now I will say that I do like the parents who just say something about how some people are born like this. And even though we look a bit different, we're still regular people like everyone else. But sometimes I'll hear a gem like, I bet he shrank in the wash. But what I can't stand is when people try to use me to parent their kids. I'm sure you can think of ways to convince your kids to finish their plate at dinner that don't involve pointing at a dwarf in public and saying, look, this is what happens when you leave food on your plate. Or, he didn't listen to his mommy when she told him to eat all of his vegetables. Hearing parents say that, it's rude, it's humiliating, and it teaches your kid that differences are a bad thing, and that people are at fault for their differences or disabilities. It just pisses me off. So a few days ago, I was in public, and a kid who was maybe 4 or 5 years old was acting out, and his mom was clearly struggling to keep him under control. So she points to me and tells her son that I was one of Santa's elves, that I was watching him, and that I would tell Santa about his behavior. The kid's name was on a key ring on his backpack, so I just walked over and said, "It's okay, Hunter. I know who you are. You're on the nice list, and Santa told me that you're getting a brand new iPad this Christmas." Hunter was excited. His eyes lit up. His mom, however, was not. Guys, that was a perfect response from OP, and I really hope the mom had something else planned for Hunter for Christmas. With that said, whether she gets him an iPad or not, she's gonna be paying a-hole tax one way or another for that rude remark, right? It's either she's out a few $100 that she wasn't planning to spend, or she'll have to potentially deal with a spoiled brat who throws a mega tantrum on Christmas Day. We'll never know, but that was such a brilliant comeback on OP's part. Now, this isn't my story, but a family friend story. I know this lovely German lady who I'll call Heidi. She was married to an Israeli man who we'll call D-bag. Now, he was a D-bag for a number of reasons. He worked with my dad in IT, who said he had a hero complex where he would cause disasters at work and then try to be a hero to save the day. The guy was also really creepy. He was the exact opposite of his wife, who was lovely and sweet and charismatic, and I have no idea how they ended up together. Unfortunately, a while after we made friends with them, Heidi got very sick. Her colon stopped working, and she almost died. Thankfully, she was in a country with stellar healthcare that saved her life, but she found out that she had Crohn's disease, and she had to get a colostomy bag. While she was recovering from surgery, D-bag announced that he wanted a divorce. His exact words were, and I quote, "I did not marry a sick woman. I'm not taking care of someone. I have my own life to live." He left her high and dry, and very soon he was seeing someone else. He lost all the friends he made in our country with his awful behavior, and my family told him that he was no longer welcome near us, as we were there for Heidi. The guy finally left and went back to Israel, and apparently he had gotten into quite a bit of debt while in my country, and he skipped off to avoid paying. Good riddance, we all said. Heidi found her feet eventually. She took up photography and went to university to study it. She did very well for herself, and she lived a happy life, free from D-bag. So after about a year, D-bag contacts Heidi and she told us all about it. Apparently, he was trying to sweet-talk her into going to Israel to go through with the divorce proceedings. According to Heidi, your marital status is on your identity card in Israel. When the girl saw that he was married on his card, they would never go for a second date. So every time he would call her asking when she was coming to finalize the paperwork, she would put on a huge grin and reply, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not really in a position to fly with my condition. Maybe when I get better." Heidi knew full well that he won't set foot back here because his creditors were still looking for their money back. She would just relish in the knowledge that he was getting rejected by all those women that he was pursuing in Israel, while she chilled with us having a great time. Heidi's doing much better now. She went back to Germany. Though she still visits my family and her friends from time to time, she's still her awesome self. And I don't know what D-bag's up to now, but I suspect after all these years, he's still a D-bag. Guys, I read this thinking it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, right? Like whatever happened to "till death do us part" in sickness and in health. Like in my eyes, Heidi's doing women a huge favor out there. I hope the guy never gets married again. This person says, "This is beautiful. Typically in Israel, due to really messed up marriage laws, the husband can refuse divorce, and it becomes a whole thing where the wife's stuck in this situation where she can't remarry or even really date. It's kind of poetic that it's going the other way this time." On a side note, if she wants to be even more petty, it would be a terrible shame if she told the creditors where he lives now. Even more shameful, if they file a lawsuit in Israel where the debt gets pulled immediately from his bank account. So this isn't my story, but recently happened to a friend of mine. Personal details are omitted, obviously. So my buddy Steve has worked at a small business for over 10 years. Most of his time there has been pretty alright, but recently it's become remarkably worse to work there. Steve is the most senior employee outside of management, and by far the most productive. He's always training new hires, working extra hours, helping other departments, you name it. So pretty often, Steve will come in for a couple of hours on his day off to take care of backed up paperwork and general housekeeping in his department. This does wonders for keeping the department running smoothly, especially when they're busy. Management knows about this and they approve. Going into the holidays this year, they're absolutely slammed as usual. Orders are backing up and it's all hands on deck. Extra hours, full tilt. After another 60-hour work week, Steve has a couple of days off. On his second day off though, he decides to go into work for a few hours. He knows his coworkers are likely to be too busy taking care of side stuff, so he's being a team player and he's helping out. While he's finishing up and about to leave, Steve's manager comes up to him and they have the following conversation. Steve's manager basically says to him, "Hey Steve, quit messing around, get back out there and do your job." Steve replies, "Hey manager, sorry, but this is actually my day off. I'm not scheduled to work this shift. I'm just here to help out, leaving in 5 minutes." At that, the manager replies, "The hell you are? You're working. Get your ass out there." Steve says, "No, that's not happening. I'm going home." The next day, Steve is brought into the office, dressed down, and written up for insubordination. But here's a few things about Steve that you should know, that his employers knew, but they forgot or they didn't care about. Number 1, Steve's getting fed up with his employer for a while now. Number 2, Steve is quite financially stable, as he works in a high-demand industry, and his wife also has a fantastic paying job. Number 3, Steve is about to become a dad. In fact, he's very, very close to becoming a dad, right after the holidays, most likely. So Steve's in the manager's office, just finished getting talked down to and handed his write-up to sign. Steve signs his write-up, hands it back, along with an envelope with a short letter inside. The manager asked, "What's this?" Steve says, "My 2 weeks notice." At that point, cue the backpedaling. The manager is apologetic, and he asks for Steve to at least finish the holiday rush. The big boss then comes in and offers Steve a pay raise if he stays, the whole shebang, and Steve turns it all down. Now Steve's former employer has to get through the holidays without their most reliable worker, which will take at least 2 to 3 new hires to cover. Meanwhile, Steve can enjoy the holidays without stress, help prepare for the arrival of their baby, and start looking for work again when they're good and ready. Another prime example of employees not quitting jobs, but quitting managers, guys. And I'm glad to hear that Steve is moving on. Like, that place doesn't deserve Steve. You know why? Because I, and probably 99% of the people out there, would never in a million years come in on my day off to do anything. But what a stupid thing to get written up for, right? Not working on your day off when your boss asked you to. Holy crap. So this is a bit long with all the background, so go make a cuppa and settle in. My mother-in-law hated me from the moment we met. Think evangelical Catholic meets goth atheist. I moved in with her son and had a baby without getting married, and she truly believed that I was the devil incarnate, sent to draw her baby boy into the depths of hell. There followed years of petty microaggressions and a constant barrage of manipulation and guilt-tripping. She would do things like offering to watch the kids and then pulling out half an hour before, or buying the kids a puppy when we expressly said no, and then blaming us when she had to take the poor thing back. She's pushed over my motorbike, turned up at my work, tried to rearrange the furniture in our house, and she constantly talked about God and Jesus in front of my kids and told them that they were going to hell because they weren't baptized. I went very low contact and things were quiet for a while. Now, a bit about me is I never cared about getting married. I felt that weddings were a waste of money and I'd rather have a boat or a new motorbike, but it was important to hubby, so I agreed, on the condition that it wasn't a church wedding. Apart from the problematic nature of the church, I experienced religious trauma growing up, and I wasn't prepared to compromise. Hubby agreed, and we start planning. 2 days after we announced our engagement, a priest arrived on our doorstep. He had been sent by mother-in-law to schedule a date for the wedding and book us for premarital counseling. I was very nice to him and thanked him for coming and told him that we wouldn't be requiring any Catholic services for the wedding. The guy looked sad, and he expressed that he was a bit nervous to let mother-in-law know. I offered him coffee and sympathy, and that was the start of an unlikely friendship. I was fairly annoyed by the stunt. I talked to my hubby, who was at that time so far in the fog that he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. He didn't see the big deal, and he asked me to just let it go. I thought about it for a day, and then I told him no. I told him that we had to address this immediately, or it's gonna escalate. I understood that he loved his mom and sisters, but their obvious contempt for me was a problem. I don't like ultimatums, but by this point, I'd been putting up with it for 6 years, and I laid it out. We address it now or no wedding. It went about as well as you'd expect. We visited, and hubby tried to talk to her about how inappropriate her actions were. She then screamed at him and cried, and then his sisters started on us both. Standing there watching my hubby's heartbreak, my filter broke. I told them to stop it, very loudly. I then told them that they were behaving like toddlers and that I was embarrassed by their antics, and to consider this their first and only warning. If they tried anything like this again or treated us with anything other than kindness and respect, not only would I cancel the wedding, but I would tell their priest and all their friends about their disgusting behavior. If they wanted to be a part of the planning, I would welcome their participation, but I told them that hubby and I had the final say. Mother-in-law tried to speak, but I shushed her like Dr. Evil shushing Scott, and then we left. Hubby was distraught and I felt bad for him, but we got into couples counseling and things got better. Meanwhile, mother-in-law and sister-in-laws seemed to have taken things on board and they were maintaining a frosty civility. Fast forward about 12 months, time for dress shopping. Now, I hated the idea of a wedding dress. I hate the pale colors, I hate dressing up, I hate dresses. Just everything about the idea made me want to fake a coma to get out of it. But I had promised my own mom and brother that we could do this together. So my mom, mother-in-law, 3 sister-in-laws, and brother and his wife were all traipsed along with me to marvel at the sight of me in a wedding dress. And to tell ya, it wasn't a bad day. My in-laws behaved, and I found a dress that I didn't hate as much as the others. I paid for it and we left. The next day, I got a call from the shop. My mother-in-law and sister-in-laws had ordered the exact same dress as me for themselves. I told hubby and he didn't really believe it and he laughed about it for a bit. And that's when I went back to the shop and ordered a new dress. The new dress I got was dark purple with black trim. And then I had a great idea. Now, I don't have a lot of female friends, but my male friends have wives who've had wedding dresses. And sometimes they say that they feel sad that they spent all that money on a dress that they'll never wear again. So I talked to hubby and he agreed. So all the invitations went out and every person who had ever worn a wedding dress was invited to wear it to our wedding. Mother-in-law and sister-in-laws got a different invitation that specifically asked them to not wear white. Dress code stated whatever you're comfortable in. Now, I wasn't there for the initial confusion that swiftly turned into rage, but my mom and brother gleefully recounted this story later. So apparently all 4 of them turned up in their beautiful white dresses with their beautiful makeup and hair, and they were completely absorbed by the rest of the crowd. They didn't stand out at all. They looked exactly like everybody else, except for my mom and brother's wife, who wore purple just like me. They weren't gonna ruin my day by upstaging me. My hubby, who up to that point really didn't think they would do something so vile, turned to stone that day. They had finally shown the depths that they would sink to, and the last of the fog was swept away. I turned up in the sidecar of a Harley, and I walked down the aisle to the Imperial March by myself. My brother was my maid of honor, and his wife was my hubby's best man. And remember the priest? Well, he wasn't allowed to officiate outside a church as a priest, so he was our MC. This was the icing on the cake, because I saw mother-in-law's face light up when she saw him. until he introduced the marriage celebrant, and he handed her the microphone. We had a pagan hand fasting, jumped over a broomstick, and walked back down the aisle to Sweet Child of Mine, while our 2 kids played air guitar and danced ahead of us. I came face to face with my mother-in-law at the door, and she was incandescent with rage. She wanted to speak, but my hubby stepped forward and he shushed her right in front of everyone. It was glorious. She didn't speak to either of us for the rest of the night. She didn't speak to us for nearly a month after that. She then called one day to ask to see the kids, as if nothing happened. So I let it go because my husband and I had won. But every now and then, I wear the purple dress when I know she'll be at an event because I'm petty like that. And you should see her face. Oh my goodness, guys, I absolutely love this post. That must have been one super unique wedding. Like, imagine turning up as a guest and seeing multiple others in wedding dresses. Sophie does come back with an update that says, the wedding was 20 years ago. We've been happily married since, and the in-laws have mellowed with age. The sister-in-laws have their own partners and kids, and we do hang out sometimes. I also don't live in the US. Being family doesn't give anyone the right to treat people badly. My mother-in-law did not deserve consideration just because she was my hubby's mom. I am also not pagan. I'm an atheist, encouraged by both horrible experiences as a child and a career in science. I don't have a blanket hate for religious people. I respect their right to practice their faith should they choose to do so. We didn't have a pagan wedding. It was a secular ceremony that included things that hubby and I liked. I actually wanted to jump over a fire, but it was summer and we had a total fire ban. So even if I wasn't scared about setting myself ablaze, we wouldn't have been able to do it. The original dress I purchased was about $300. There was no way I was spending thousands of dollars on a dress that I would never wear again, so it wasn't out of mother-in-law's budget. Also, not all the women chose to wear their own wedding dresses. As far as I know, no one bought a wedding dress just for that day. So yeah guys, that's the end of that post. But one thing I've learned from reading these posts is never ever wear a wedding dress to spite someone to ruin their special day, because it never ends well. So one of my best friends, Alex, was a staffer in a state legislative office. His boss was head of a key Senate budget committee. So there was always people coming in to solicit her support for a particular project or grant or whatever. So one day, someone representing an arts program that was looking for a $250,000 grant was waiting. We'll call her Lobby Ann. Lobby Ann comes up to the reception desk and she asks for a pen. The senator keeps giveaway pens with her name on them in stock, reasonably nice ones. So Alex reaches over to the can where the pens are, and Lobby Ann says something along the lines of, well, then the senator will know that I showed up without a pen. She then looks across the desk, and Alex has some work spread out with his own favorite pen on there. This was an expensive pen, with a lapis inlay engraved with his name and term of office of a campus organization. That's when Lobby Ann reaches over, snatches it, and drops it in her purse. Alex, who's a very polite person, is completely gobsmacked. He then tells Lobby Ann that that's his personal pen and it's not up for grabs. Lobby Ann gives him a contemptuous look and she refuses very rudely. Now, one of the sad and funny things about this story is that she uses a slur that Alex wasn't sure was a reference to his heritage or his perceived sexuality. Alex was confused and deeply upset. He sits back down while Lobby Ann flounces back to the waiting area. In a few minutes, the senator comes out to get Lobby Ann. As they're walking past Alex's desk, he stands up and says in a very clear voice, "Hey, I'm gonna need my pen back." That's when Lobby Ann stops in her tracks, as does the senator. And Alex says calmly, "I may be a slur, or whatever you decided to call me, but that pen is precious to me and you stole it right off this desk and I want it back." Hearing that, the senator lets out a gasp and says, "She stole your lapis pen and she called you a slur?" And then turns to Lobby Ann, who's frantically fishing around in her purse and stammering something about just borrowing it. Once the pen is back in Alex's hand, the senator says to Alex, "Come on back, I need you," and then turns and walks back into her office, leaving Lobby Ann standing there as the senator shuts the office door in her face. Then the senator picks up her purse, smiles a bright smile and says, "Want Starbucks?" So she and Alex go out the side door and across the street. They can see the front door of the office from the Starbucks. Apparently, it took Lobby Ann about 5 minutes to realize how bad she'd messed up, and that she wasn't gonna see the senator that day, or any day, and that the project she was gonna ask for money toward was probably doomed as well. When she came slinking out, she certainly saw Alex and the senator there drinking their drinks. And Alex always ends the story with, "That was the best coffee that I've ever had." Serves Lobby Ann right. like stealing from someone and then calling them a racial slur when they ask for it back, that's definitely karma for you. And I love how the two just went out the side doors and left Lobby Ann hanging. I couldn't hold it together reading that part, guys. And that, my friends, is r/PettyRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed so you don't miss the crazy, crazy stories on this channel. And if you guys missed the last episode, I'll link it right here. A super duper entitled Karen shows up at OP's house and demands to live there for free. And she calls the cops when OP won't let her inside. It's such a crazy story, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.